So that's what we're seeing in this video, how to build a dashboard, or let's say more precisely, how to use charts, pivot tables in MS Excel. We are going to build something similar to this in the very same worksheet that we have here. You can use any worksheet of your choice. So far as you have data, we can create something which is responsive like this, and this thing of showing some inside information concerning the worker or the Excel sheet you're actually working with. So we're going to use this Excel file to do that. We have a sales receipt worksheet here. We have a sales order archive, and we have place where we can enter sales receipt. We equally have a place where we can enter sales order. So just for a quick recap, the sales receipt will validate whatsoever is entered as a sales order. Like we place an order, it enters in the sales order archive. We use the sales receipt to validate the order, and it enters in the sales receipt archive. From here, we're going to then build a dashboard. Also, we have an expense sheet where we have the possibility to enter the expenses, and we have an income statement. In here, we are going to build a quick and summarized dashboard in order to have inside information about what is happening in all of these worksheets. So I'll get to the dashboard. I will be referring to what I've already done here. So we're going to have everything in our dashboard will be based on periods, like for example, month and also year, so that we can have the possibility to filter anything in our dashboard according to the month, according to the year. I'm going to put some colors. I can make this have this color as well as this, and here I make something like this and something like this. Okay, so here I will have to put the year in question. I will have to put the year manually, and then for the month you can either put January or February or whatsoever. But I've already created a database for the different months so that it becomes easier for me. So I have a page here for settings where I've already created the different months and given the different figures for each month, and I have named this range as being I think it's year, no, months. I think it should be months if I'm not mistaken. Okay, months. As you can see, I've already given that. So I'll just get to my dashboard and get to the cell where I want the months to enter, and I will go to data and to take data validation. From here, I'll select list, and here I'll call for the database of months I already created. So I'm going to call for that with F3 key, F3 on my keyboard, and I take months. So if I never created a data range here, I will have the possibility to go to settings and select the range itself. So, but I already named it to be months, so I'll just use months. So from there, I tick OK. Here I can now select the month in question, and the year I can put the year, which is not going to be too complicated, like to just put might be 2023. It's not going to be complicated, so I'm just going to allow that 2024. So next thing I'm going to work on bringing these key informations like a sales overview, an expense overview, and a profit overview. So to gain in time, I'm just going to highlight them with a control key on my keyboard. Then on your side, you should type them. You should type these key options. I'm just going to copy and paste it here so I can go ahead faster. So we will need to have a sales overview, expense overview, and a profit overview. So you type this way. You can put the colors the way you want, colors that please you. So in terms of total sales, we have here um, a sales receipt archive which shows the total, which shows the sales per item. It means that if we come here, for example, or let me say here you have a column for total amount. So the total amounts here, or the sum of all the amounts of the sales, will actually give us the total sales for the given period. So if I go, for example, to the sales order and I place a new order, so everything starts at level of the order. If I place a new order with some new items, say a customer came and he picked this from a restaurant, 2 units, 1 unit. So if this is his order, I'm going to validate it. To validate it, so I don't want to print it in PDF. I'm just going to take no. From here, you will see the order has been saved, and as you can see, it's not in green to show that it has not yet been validated. So if I now come to the sales receipt and I come at the level of order number and I select order number 2, you'll see the order will then appear. From here, I can select the means of payment and take validate, take no, and it's going to validate the order. It's now validated and it now exists instead at the level of the sales receipt archive. So all these amounts at the level of amounts will give my total sales or my total revenue for the respective period in question. So I'll get to the dashboard. I need the total sales for the period which is highlighted here, January 2024 or February or which year whatsoever. So obviously, if I want to sum or accumulate the total sales, I'll use the sum if function. So I could just use the sum if function. I'll say equals sum if. So I'm going to first of all use the sum if function, then we're going to be making some modifications as we are going ahead. So I'll use the sum ifs because they're going to be many conditions. The sum range is going to be in my sales receipt archive, and this is going to be the sum range, meaning what will be summing at the end of the day. What item are they asking the criteria range one? The first criteria range is going to be in terms of months, and the criteria in this criteria range is what is in this cell in my dashboard, which is D2. So I'm going to put the dollar signs on D2 so that it should be blocked to this cell. And the second criteria will be, for example, in terms of the years, because I have made in such a way that when the date appears, the month and the year equally appears. And the criteria for this second criteria range is going to be the year. I'm also going to put dollar sign in there. So in this case, when I close bracket, you will see, according to the month in question, it is going to get the sum. If I come, for example, to the sales receipts archive and I change like this to be might be the month of February, you will notice that at the level of the dashboard, there's an amount in February. If I go to March, you'll see the total sum for March. If I go to January, it also appears. But if I say 2025, since there's no transaction in 2025, you'll see nothing shows. But as soon as I take it back to 2024, everything is fine. But what happens when there is no month? When there is no month selected or highlighted, the total revenue is zero. But I actually I want to make it in such a way that when no month is highlighted, it should give the total sales for the whole year, so that if I select a month, it should show just for that month in that year. But if there is no month, it should show the total revenue for the specific year. In that case, I'm going to further condition this function so that it can actually give me the outcome I need. So what I'm going to do is that I will say if this cell is equal to nothing, then it means if there is nothing in that cell, then it should do something for me. The value throw in case there is nothing should be the sum. The sum if, it should be sum ifs. Now the sum range should be the total amounts, total revenue. The criteria range should be in terms of year, not month, in terms of year, and the criteria in the criteria range should be this year. So to make understand that in case there is nothing in this cell, it should sum in terms of the year. So that's my value if true, and my value if false is year and month. That is, in case this cell is not equal to nothing, then what should happen is that it should actually sum, taking into consideration both the month and the year. From here, I close my bracket and I take the tab key. You see, when there is no month highlighted, it gives the total revenue for this year. But when there is a month highlighted, it gives the total revenue for that month for this year, which is actually what I want to do. I'm going to do same with the order information. For example, expenses. I have a worksheet where expenses are being recorded. So the same way, I'm going to use this option for month and year to sum the total for the expenses. So here, in terms of expenses, I'm going to say if. I will start directly since I've already explained. If the month is equal to nothing, if there is nothing as month, I will actually want it to do the sum if. I'm going to take the sum range, which is going to be the amounts here at the level of the expenses. Now the criteria range one will just be in terms of year, and the criteria is this year. I'm just going to put the dollar sign. Now that is a value if true. That's a value in case this cell, in case the month is not available. Now what if the month is available? That's a value if false. If the month is available, it should actually do the sum ifs. The sum range should be all of these. Then the criteria range one should be in terms of months. The criteria in this criteria range should be this month. And the second criteria range is going to be in terms of the year. And the criteria in this criteria range is going to be the year. Just as simple as that. So from there, I close bracket for the sum if. So this was bracket closing the sum if function. Then I close bracket for the second time to close the if function. In this case, no month, it will give the total expense for the year. But if there's a specific month, you'll see it will then give the total expense for that specific month. Actually, here in terms of the expenses, all the expenses were recorded in the month of January. If I change, for example, this one to be February, if I change, for example, this to be February, you will notice that if I come here and I select February, it will give the total expense for February. I need the cost of goods sold. In the sales receipt archive, we have brought the cost of the items. If this is the unit selling price, this is the cost. Actually, the cost is already at the level of the different items. When we created the items here, the cost prices were already there. The selling prices were already there. So from here, from the sales, after each item amount, we have the cost prices and the total cost, which is just the multiplication of the cost price by the number of units. It means that in terms of cost, we are okay. So at the level of the dashboard, we're going to get the cost of goods sold, the cost of only the goods that has been sold so far. So different from the expenses incurred actually. So from here, I'll just use the very same function that I used. Might be here. I can even just copy this function completely. I can copy these, come at the level of, since they are in the same table, I can now come at the level of the cost of goods sold, paste it there. Just that in terms of the amounts, I'm not going to be looking at amount. I'm going to be looking at the cost, the total cost. However, the total cost, which is the amount I need, and yet total cost. In terms of amount, I'm going to remove amount and put only total cost. Total cost. So also because I'm using a table, so it makes it actually very easy. So from here, I can now have the total cost, just making sure that everything is okay. I've just copied the function. Total cost. So fine. So if we come here or in sales archive, you check in the month of February, cost is actually total cost is actually 2,415, which is actually very okay here. So if we go, for example, for the month of January, you see everything is changing automatically. Actually, yeah, I then need to get to the gross profit. The gross profit, which is just going to be the difference between the total revenue and the cost of goods sold. So I'll just say total revenue minus the cost of goods sold. And the year, I will, for example, make it be the total revenue minus cost of goods sold and equally minus the total expenses. So here we will then be seeing a loss. So it means that we can have a loss or a profit. So I'm not going to call this net profit, but I'm going to call it, for example, net result, because it can either be a profit or a loss. Just going to put this in caps. Okay, so I can come here if I want, for example, the value to instead show brackets. I'll come at the home page. At the home menu, I select the cell, then I go to number formats. I'll take more number format. I'll come to custom and I'll select this one, this option, this particular option, so that I can put the value in bracket instead. I prefer that way. So those are already the basic informations at the top that we actually need. So I can just make all of these other cells be bold, as well as these other cells, just making it bold, something like this. So gradually we're getting there. So what next? What's the next thing we need? We could get, for example, for a dashboard, we could get the order management or the pending orders, because here we actually place orders and the orders are being received in the form of, or are being completed in the form of a sales receipt. It means when when the customer places an order, it enters at the sales order archive, and when he finally pays his order, it converts from here and then moves to sales receipt archive. So we might want to know the number of uncompleted orders or of unpaid or of opened orders. Let's say so. So at the level of here, I can just write here order performance, and here I'm going to put opened orders if I want opened orders, so that in the cell that follows in this cell, I'll be able to highlight the number of orders that are open. So I'll just want to give the same format to this cell. So I'll take this, come to the home menu, take format painter, and I click on this so that it can repeat the same format. And I might come here at the level of this cell, also double click on paint the format painter and click on this, click on this, click on this, click on this, so that I can repeat the same the same style, the same format to all of them. So here I will then have to count the number of opened orders. Actually, here there is no opened orders. As you can see, everything is already closed. So I'm just going to create a new order, order number 3. I'm just going to put some items. Say this item and this item. Say 1 unit here, and here 2 units. No, that's a 1 unit, and the 2 units here, for example. So I'll take validate. So this is an opened order. So then come here. It is very important to note that it has been made in such a way that when an order is completed, it shows 1, and when the order is not completed, it shows 0. So it is 1 that gives this conditional formatting of good, and it is 0 that gives this conditional formatting of X. So good for completed, 0 for uncompleted, and 1 for completed orders. So I'll come to the dashboard and I'll count in case that cell has actually completed or uncompleted orders. So I'm just going to count the number of orders that are opened, which is the orders that at the level of the check shows the figure 0. So I'll get to the dashboard and I will equally need to make it in such a way that it follows the period that is selected, because it is this period that is going to guide us through. As a result, I will get here, I'll also say, so we need to count the number of uncompleted orders. So I'm going to use the count if. I'm going to use the count if. So here I will have to count if. So I'm just going to try it first. Count if in the sales orders archive. So if in this range we have anything that is 0, so a close bracket. So you can see the 2 orders that are not completed. So how do I then make it in such a way that it follows actually the period? So that's the month and the year. So I will not have the possibility to easily do it year, because yeah, I just have the date, but I don't have it separated in terms of month and year. That's why here I'm going to rapidly create something like month as a column and also year. There could be other ways to do this, but I just wanted to make it simple. So in terms of month, we need to extract the month from this date. So I'm going to say equals month. So I'm going to select this cell as a serial number, and the year I'm going to select the function year, and I'm going to select this date as a serial number. So you see, we automatically detect the month and the year. Just that in terms of months here, the months are in terms of figures, but in our dashboard, the month is not in terms of figure, it's in terms of month, like January, February, March, and so on. So I will need to make it in such a way that year actually shows the month in its full name. Already at the level of settings, I have a database where I have all the months and the figure corresponding the month. So I'm going to make a little trick here. Just going to come here and say if, no, not if. I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function. So the lookup value is going to be this. Actually, the lookup value is the figure that is already showing up in this cell. Like without the VLOOKUP here, it's going to show 1 representing January, right? So the lookup value is going to be all the function that was already inside. So the table array is going to be at the level of the setting. This is going to be a table array. I'm going to take the $ in order to make this fixed. And the column index number is in column number 2, like this column number 1 and this column number 2. So I'm going to take 2. And I just want an exact match. Take 0, close bracket, and fine. So it will just get there and look for the corresponding number based on the month in the settings, and it just give us exactly which month it is. So I will then get at the level of the dashboard, and I'll say count if. So we count if there's just one condition. So I'm going to use the count ifs function so that I can have the possibility to put many criteria. So the first criteria is that it should count when it sees 0, and the second criteria will be that in here the criteria range should be in terms of the month, and the criteria should be this month. Actually, just put it in $, though it's not that necessary here. So same thing, the second criteria now is going to be in terms of the year, and the criteria for that criteria range is going to be this. So I will just close the bracket and take okay. So for January we have nothing. If I go to February, nothing. If I go to March, okay, good. It means all the open orders are in the month of March actually, so that's fine. So that's just an example of what I want to do. So you can extract any kind of information of your choice. But here I'll just get to the next one. We are going to extract we're going to make some items performance. We're going to extract the top 10 items sold and the bottom 3 items sold. So like the top and the least item sold. So we can actually know which item sells the more, or this one is not actually going to be in terms of quantity, but it's going to be in terms of value, like which item gives us the most or the greatest revenue, like the first three items that give us more revenue and the last three items that gives us less revenue. So we're just going to build something that way. So I'll get back here. Actually, I'm going to bring up something like item performance. So here I can change maybe the font size, font type anyway, anyone. Do it the way I want, but here I actually need to bring that. So we could do that manually with the use of some functions. We could do that with the use of some functions, but in this case, I'm just going to do that with pivot tables. We're going to call for pivot tables, and we're going to manage everything with a pivot table. So here, for me to get the top or the first best three items sold, actually I'll get to the sales receipt archive, because it's where the final sales then land. And in here we have the different items that are sold. Have the different items that are sold. We equally have the total amounts at which they are sold, and you see everything is just okay. So I'll use this table to produce my pivot table. To create a pivot table, you need a table, and as you can see, this is a table. For you to create a table, you always come to insert and you take table. So this information has been entered in the table, which is different from a normal range. So in here, I cannot create any table again, but I can create a pivot table. I can equally create recommended pivot table. You can just click on this and you see some recommendations about some pivot tables. Okay, you can get these kind of values and so on. Good. But here, I'm just going to come create a pivot table from scratch. And here I can use a new, I can domicile the pivot table in a new worksheet. Excel is going to create a new worksheet for me. But in this case, I'm going to use an existing worksheet, and for the location, I put my console there, and I get at the level of the dashboard. I want it to be somewhere around here. So I'm just going to allow some two lines at the top. I'm going to explain why. So from here, I take OK, and you can see this is a pivot table. This pivot table will help us summarize some specific informations from the table itself. So when you create a pivot table, you then have a pivot table field appearing by the right. If you do not see the pivot table field, you click anywhere where the pivot table is showing, you come to analyze, and you will see this field list. It might have been unticked. So you just tick it and you will see this. So you can have it in different ways, organized differently depending on how it shows in your computer. So I'm just going to allow it the way it is here. So all these information represents the different columns that are in the table in question. So this table, all these columns will be visible in here. So I didn't just drag the column I want to use and I put it where I need it. So I will need, for example, the item names. I'll carry the item names, come and drop on rows. As you can see, it has brought it at the level of the rows, which is actually quite exciting. So what do I need? I actually need the sales amounts. I'll carry the amount and I'll put it under value. And you can see it's going to sum all the sales of each of those items and put it in the next column, which is actually very nice. Then I think that's nice. So that's fine. So actually I need in here the top three items sold. So that's what I need actually. I'm just going to put it in bold. So, but here is not showing the top three. It will just show all the items. It means that if in our sales receipts archive we have like 1,000 items or 10 items appearing 1,000 times, all the 10 items will be summarized in here. But here I need to filter only the top three items sold. So I'll come here on the drop down for filters, and I get to value labels. In value labels, I will see top 10. So I take top 10. From here, they'll ask me to configure the top number. I can make it in terms of bottom or in terms of top. So I'm going to make top three, for example. And from here, in terms of the items, good, and sum of amounts, I'm just going to take OK. So as you can see, it has filtered it to the top three items sold. So I'll also right click here and sort it from biggest amount to smallest amount, so that it should show first of all the amounts of the items that have biggest or highest values before showing those that which have lower values. So that is fine. Now, what happens is that the amounts that are figuring out there are not specifically for the months in question, because as you can see, in here, I am selecting the month, but the values are not changing because it's actually showing the total values that are at the level of this sales receipt archive, which is actually very tricky. Pivot tables can be filtered. As you can see, there is a field here for filter. So we can carry, for example, the date or month, come and drop it on filter, and you see a new column will appear here where you can come and select the month in question. You see? So here you can filter according to the month you want to see. Just that this is not working accordingly with the other data set, because all these other people or all these other cells are not, then are not actually referring themselves from this pivot table. Everything is actually in terms of these settings that were made earlier. Now it becomes a little bit complicated to integrate filters from a normal cell, a normal field, a normal cell like this from a pivot table, because pivot tables will only be reflected by the items that are in the table, which is this specific table. It means that if something is not in this table, it cannot actually figure out in the pivot table. And in terms of filtering, it cannot filter information based on this selection, because this actually a normal cell of which this is a pivot table. But I will have to make a little technique so that we can actually filter them together. So what I'm going to do is that in terms of months, I cannot actually filter it in terms of months, because if I make it in terms of month, this guy, they are not actually going to communicate. So I'll do something. I'll come at the level of the sales receipt archive, and I'll create a new column called show filter. So simple. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to create this field, this column, and make it a yes or a no test to know whether the month and the year selected is actually at the level of the months and the year in our database. So here I will come and I will say if and I'll use the and function because I have many logical tests to put in one. I'm going to say if and at the level of the dashboard, if this cell don't really know what's the issue. If this cell for January is equal to, since I'm in this cell entering this function, if it's equal to this cell, so for this I'm going to block this with F3 because it will surely be auto-filling. So if the month there is equal to the month here, then and like I'm using the and function to put many logical tests, and if at the level of the dashboard the year is equal to, so I'm just going to put a dollar sign is equal to the year at the level of the sales archive. Yes, if it's equal, if both of them are together, then it should give me the value through should be a yes, or let me say a y. So I'm putting quote y. Or if not, if both of them are not aligned, so I'm just going to say no with n. So I'm going to put in quote n, and I'm going to close bracket, and that's fine. So you see, each time we have the January and 2024, it will show you y, and each time it doesn't, it will show you n, which is actually good. So we come here, we will not filter here in terms of the months or the year anymore. We filter it in terms of years. So each time it shows yes, it means that this month has actually been visible at the level of our data source. So I'll click on the pivot table, then I'm not going to filter in terms of months anymore. But so far, I cannot still see the new column I created, because normally I created a new column, but it's not yet visible here. So you need to understand that when you make a change at the level of a pivot table, at the level of the data source of a pivot table, the change will not be automatically visible at the level of the pivot table itself. Like in this data source, we've added a new column. As you can see, the pivot table is not yet aware of the new column, so you always need to refresh. So either you right click on any cell at the level of the pivot table and you take refresh, or you can equally come to analyze and you take refresh. So when you take refresh, you notice that the new column has already been added, show filter. So I'm going to carry it and put it under filter. And here I'm going to filter only yes. So I take OK. So each time I select a month, it's going to come here and say whether there is a yes or whether it's a no. But so far, you will see that the amounts are not still updated. Still, because we are working with a pivot table, and each time there is an update or a change, you need to refresh. So for now, we are still building it. We will refresh it manually, but at the end of the video, we are going to see how to automatically refresh it. So I can either take Alt plus F5 on my keyboard, or I can right click and take refresh, or I go to analyze and take refresh. So as for me, I just took the shortcut, which is Alt plus F5. So you see, when I change, for example, the month, now look at something. Actually, when I choose something like March, I have to come here, take Alt plus F5, and it will have to update. But if I choose a month that doesn't exist, like April, for example, when I come here and I refresh, you will notice that it will not see any month with April, so everything here is just going to be no. And it definitely means that at the level of our show filter, there's only one option, which is no, and there is no option with yes. So that is a limitation we might have with this. But so far as we select, for example, you see for April it will actually show everything, but so far as you select a month which is actually in the database, if you come here, you refresh it, it will not automatically move back to years. So you see that's a limitation. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to try remedying from this. So so that when there is nothing that matches, it should always have at least one item that has a yes, so that it should not automatically convert and move back to no. Now, you also need to understand that when we are here and that there is no month, why others are showing for the whole year, this one, but if I refresh it, you will still go and see only no, because actually the function we gave is it should show yes if both conditions are fulfilled, if the month and the year are visible. But now in the dashboard there is no month, so you see it becomes a little bit tricky. But we want that when there is no month, everything should actually be yes, meaning when no month is selected, everything should be yes, so that every information here should be visible. As a result, we'll first of all come here and edit this function, bring another if function from the beginning and say if the month here is equal to nothing, if the month is equal to nothing, then yes, which is y, right? So if the month is equal to nothing, then you should show y. So I close bracket and I take the tab key. So when the month is not selected, let's check it out. When the month is not there, will it actually show y? I don't know if it has auto fill or okay, there's a problem with this. I did not stabilize Z2, so I have to put a dollar sign. So once there's no months, everything is Y and everything is also fine at this level. Just that um, the data there is a month actually which doesn't figure out in the sales receipt archive. Everything is just going to be N, and it will push this filter to have only N. And for this month, it is going to show some figures that are not actually in that month. So we will have to just make a little gymnastic. I'm just going to increase a cell, a column here at the top. I'm just going to increase a column at the top, like a default column at the top. And from here, I'm just going to remove every function and just put a y, so that at least there should be always one y, so that it should not all automatically convert. So I'm just going to refresh this all, come back here, select y, so that y should be the always available, just that it's now going to bring something here like blank, which is not actually the best, but we're going to deal with it. So here, there's always going to then be the first line there having nothing. So I could just delete everything in the first line, so it has nothing if I want. And the year, it's going to have just a y. So good. Just that when I do that, it's surely going to affect the calculation and the way everything is at the level of our sales order archive, because it doesn't see anything at the level of the first column. So I'm also going to kind of insert a new column here, and from here I'm just going to allow it very empty. Okay, nice. So from here everything is fine. When I choose a month that is not there, and I refresh, for example, the pivot table, oh, nothing. And if I select a month which actually exists, fine. So actually everything is moving the way we want. So I will just also create it, the, the lowest items that are sold. Like why this one were the top, we're going to also build the lowest item sold. So I'm just going to select all of this, copy, and make a copy of it just down there, so I don't have to build the pivot table again, however. So just that the data source is still going to be the same table, just that at this level I will come at the level of the filter in terms of value, At the level of top, I'm going to instead take bottom, like the bottom three items sold. So I'm also going to take OK, and this is fine. It's going to show me the bottom item sold. If I come here, I'll just check on it again. Bottom items sold in terms of amount, items, goods, sum. So what if I refresh this table? Okay, actually there are just two items for the month of January, and those two items are just naturally the bottom two items sold. So practically no difference. So I'll just come at the level of the amounts, and I'm going to take a sort from smallest to biggest, so that it should show the smallest amount to biggest. So obviously, if I come here and I put at the level of amount in the first line 0, you'll see that the blank space will actually appear first. If I refresh this, the blank space will actually appear first before any other one. So when there is no month, if I refresh this, everything is just perfect. Everything is just fine. I might want to add might be a column for the quantities, because this is just in terms of amount. So I can just stand on this first pivot table, get the quantity, like number of items, and also put it under the values. Same here, entity under the values. So in this case, we now have a number of items and the total values of the items that were sold. So I might not want to have, for example, the grand total. So I need to remove the grand total, for example. I'll come to design, and under grand total, I'll say off row and column. So I'm going to remove this. Also here, I'm going to take off row and column, so that it should not be visible, because I don't necessarily need those informations. So what else can I bring up? We have the expense detail. So the same thing I've just done, I'm going to do it for the expenses. So here, I'm just going to come at the expense worksheet, create a new table, a pivot table. So I get to insert the pivot table. Location is going to be at a level of dashboard somewhere around here. And I take OK, good. So from here, I'm going to filter everything in terms of the expense line or the budget lines. And I'm also going to put the amounts. Good. So same thing I did here, since I would also want to filter in terms of period, and that the dates that we might have here might not be able to filter based on these dates. So what I just did here in terms of show filter, I'm going to do same the other way. So I will come at the level of the expense sheet. I'm going to add a new column for show filter, and I'm just basically going to copy the same function and apply there. So just going to copy this very same function and make sure there is no problem with it before I paste. So here I'm just going to put y, like the first column having just y, so that at least there should be a y or a yes. Then the rest, I'm just going to paste the code such that when it sees the month, good. When it doesn't see the month, bad or no. So from here, I can equally, I've added a new field, but as you can notice, like I explained earlier, you need to refresh the table first. So I refresh with Alt F5, then from here I carry filter, and I will filter only in terms of years. So from here now, I can put the description here, expense details. So I can just make these bold, which is fine. So that is it. All the expenses are there. Everything is already very fine. So I can then hide this, because I will not need to see this. I'll right click on the column here, and I'll hide this. I'll equally hide this filter, equally hide this filter. So from here, I can get to the view and remove the grid line. Okay, gradually, but surely we're getting there. So each time you see each time, so I can insert a new line here, so that it should show okay. Anyways, I'm just going to allow it this way. So each time there is a change in period, if I enter in a table and I take Alt plus F, it's actually going to update that in terms of the period. So if I take Alt plus F, I need to equally do same on the other table, which doesn't have the same data source, like the expense sheet doesn't have the same data source with these other two tables, because these two other tables are coming from the sales receipts database. So now, what do I need? I might want to, let me just refresh this. I might want to, for example, have some like this. Let me just show it. Something like this, where according to the amount, we have some little bars showing by the side there. We could do that. I'll select the range, I'll come to home and I'll come to conditional formatting, then the data bar, then I select the data bar, say something like this. I'll do same here, conditional formatting data bar, probably select something like this, and the same here so that we can have a better visual effect of what is going on. Good. So what else? Here I might want to get the margins. So I'll just take the gross profit divided by the total sales if I want. So here I'll make this be in percentage. Same here, I'll say net profit divided by B. So I'll just make this be in percentage, which is already fine. So gradually our dashboard, we're getting to the end gradually. But before we go now, we will have to, let me put here this color red. We will have to create some charts to accompany these together. To accompany this, we need to put some charts. So here, I will put some charts here or some bars here to represent the different the different items here in terms of sales, expense, cost of goods. So here, I'll select, for example, sales and this. However, for the amounts, I'm going to put thousand separators. So I can select the amounts, different amounts, and then from here, I'll put some thousand separators. I could put some currencies. Oh, shit. Talking about thousand separators. I could put the currency, but for now, I don't really want to put the currency. So from here now, I will select this. So if I want to create a chart, I select the range of cells I am taking into consideration. So I'm going to select this. I will come to insert and I will take bar charts, or I can just take recommended charts so that it can show me some recommendations. But I'm going to take something like this based on how I want my visual effects to look like. So when you get a chart, you can then custom the different fields. When you get a chart, there's going to be a new tab which will appear as chart tool design and the chart tool format. So I can go to chart tool design, get to add the chart elements and decide on what should show and what should not show. Okay. So here I'll get to my axis. No, I don't need an axis. The chat title. So I'm going to remove chat title. This just depends on how I want it to be. I'm going to take this option. I'm going to remove the chat title, remove this. Then the chat itself, I'm going to reduce it and take it somewhere around here. So now in this chart, you will see that it has a background which is white and covering some space. So if I double click on the chart, I can have the format chart area. And in terms of the field, I'm going to take no field. In terms of borders, I'm going to take no borders. So from here, as you can see, it's actually transparent. I could actually do what I want to do. Like I could decide on something else. But here is what I actually wanted to do, just something like this, which is actually fine by me. So if I want to change, for example, the color of the text, I just need to double click on it, and then the property will actually appear. Then from here, I can make different decisions on how everything should look like. Like in terms of field, I can say no field. In terms of color, put the colors and everything. But I'm just going to allow it the way it is, or I can click on it, and also maybe make it bold at this level. And if I want, I can equally change maybe the color and the syntax and everything. So from here, um, I'll just duplicate this since I've already made a lot of settings on it. I'll just duplicate it with Control D. No, I'll click on it like this, actually at the angles. Then I will right click and copy, then paste with Control V, for example. I'll just place it exactly where it starts. Just that when I click now on this one, I will come at the level of format, no, at the level of design, and I take that select data so I can change the data. So for now, it is still a total sales. So I'm going to select the data to be expense, and I take OK so that this other chart will show instead the expenses. So this one I can decide and I take it kind of below like this. So same thing that I did. I'm going to copy with Control C, paste with Control V. But this time around, oh, I never did it well. So Control C, then Control V. I take it back this way, and I'm going to change the data type. I go to design. Data type will now be instead the cost of goods sold. Take OK. I can place it exactly like this. So if I'm trying to move it and with my mouse is difficult, I can use the arrows up, down, left, right on my keyboard. So next item I'll also bring is, for example, so I'll duplicate this. So I'm going to copy, stand anywhere, take paste. So I'll now take it somewhere here. But at this point in time, I'm going to change the data type to be in terms of gross margin, gross profit. So from here, I take it closer. So I can increase this like this. And then here I'm going to duplicate it with Control plus D if I want. Then I get here. Then I double click on it. No, I get to select data and now select net profit or net result, if I have to say it so. Just that net result is actually negative, so you actually move it backward. So in terms of net result, I can change its own color. So here I can change colors, apply different colors. So I can select something like this. So once we change, for example, the period, you see our charts are automatically adjusting according to the different periods that are being selected, which is actually good. So I'm going to create some other charts. Like here, I can stand on this table. I can create a chart called a pivot chart from a pivot table. So if I come to analyze, I will see an option there as pivot chart. So it's the same thing. I could also go to insert and create a new chart. But just to show, I'm going to come here, pivot chart, because I'm in the pivot table. So I can select any line type. Like here, I want, for example, to have something like this. For example, I take OK. So I'll just place it where I want it to be, but I don't want to show the field. So I'll right click on it and take hide all field button. So I'm going to remove or I will come at the level of the design and the change. I choose a style like the way the chart should actually show. So if I don't want to select any from here, I can equally come at the level of add chart element. Then I specify the elements that I actually want to have there. Like for example, axis, no need. The chart title, okay, I'll need, for example, the chart title. I'm going to change it later. Data labels, okay, we have something like this, okay. In terms of grid lines is fine, you can do anyone, okay. um okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to enlarge it like this. So I'm going to close this. I'll enlarge such that the chart can actually be much more visible. I'm going to remove this. At the level of the title, I'm going to give it at expense summary. Yeah, so I can decrease it like this if I want. Good. Yeah, I'm going to make it bold, for example. Good. So what happens is that I'm going to change the background to just be transparent. So I'll get a double click on it, for example, for the properties to show. And at the level of field, I'm going to take no field, borders, no border, and all is fine. So if you carry it this way, you see that it is actually transparent. So this is much more better. So what's the next one? I can, for example, come up with another chart for this. So I can just come here, analyze, pivot table, pick anyone, anything, any type of a chart that will actually go with this. I can select something like this. Let me just take something like this. So right click on this and take hide all fields and get it back this way. So anyone. So at the same time, you'll notice that this actually has a white background. That's why it's over standing the others. So I'll just get to it, double click. At the level of the field, I'll say no field. And what else? Borders, no borders. So this is fine. I can equally come here and create another chart. So I can come here, it might be a pie chart, something like this. Then I take OK. Then I can remove filters and might be equally this one. Then I will come at the level of design and choose a particular design. Say something like this. So from here, I will double click on it so that yeah, I can say no result, no field, no field, so that I can place this the way I want. So from here, I will have might be the top three items sold. Good. So here I will have a top bottom three. This is supposed to be bottom three. So here we'll have the possibility to have the bottom sold items. So you can come and add a new field. So we are going to add to this a header title, chat title above, and we are going to call this top or let me say bottom three items sold, so that we can have it this way. So you see, everything is already just very okay the way we had it there. When we choose, for example, the period, some changes, why you need to come and refresh this other one for it to then show the actual information for the period in question. So now we will have to look for ways to actually make it in such a way that these pivot tables should automatically change, because if they do not change, even these charts will not actually work. So in here, we need to write a code which will actually make it run faster, or to automatically refresh the different tables. You can create different type of codes, but I'm going to give you a short code so that you can work out, so that it gives some specific kind of information. To write a code, you need to have activated the developer option. So you could right click anywhere on the ribbon and take customize ribbon. From here, you will then see the desktop developer, and you can activate it. So um, when you now have a developer option, you can take Visual Basic. When you take Visual Basic, you are going to see the backend code, the backend section of a Search Excel, where you actually of Excel, where you can actually write a code. So at this level, we are going to write a short code, and let me show you the code in question. We're going to write something very short like this. So when you get in here, you get to the worksheet where you want to refresh, which is actually dashboard. You double click on it. Then so I have two worksheets open. So it's at the level of the dashboard. You double click on it, then you just paste back this code. So we're going to use a primary sub worksheet change, so that each time something changes in the worksheet, it should actually be aware and the refresh. So we're going to declare a variable being TP as pivot table, and say that for each pivot table in this workbook dot slash dot worksheets dashboard. So here you actually put the name of your dashboard, like the name of the worksheet in which you need to input this code or to make the refresh. So if you do not write it exactly the same way, then there's going to be a problem. So we have to check if the change cell is A3 or A2, for example. So the change cell here is the cell which will be moving all the time, which is actually D2. So I'll come here and I'll say my target address is D2. So at the end of the day, it will do pivot tables slash refresh. So we now get here, and once we change, for example, you see everything is updating automatically. Everything is updating. The charts are updating. Everything is updating because we have actually entered the update. Hope you loved the video. Everything is fine. Nope. If I come here and I change, for example, you see everything is changing. So hope you love the video, and in our next video we're surely going to see how to create some buttons, and how to easily have access to every worksheet in an Excel file. So if you like this, you can comment and ask any question in any area you've not actually understood. But you have to understand that when you start writing a VBA code, you need to save it as an XLMM file. So you come to file, and you take save as, and from here you search where you want to save it, and you select here the Excel macro enabled workbook. So if you do not select this data type, all the macros you must have saved in or entered in your Excel file will not actually exist anymore. So get to you in the next video.